something I've wanted to talk about literally for, I think, months here on the show. And it's not something that I have to deal with, but I see friends of mine bitching about it all the time on their Facebook pages. And I finally convinced a friend of mine to come on to bitch about it on the radio. Somebody, it's not in this area. Nobody in Northwest Ohio owns any sort of real estate property group. Nobody who owns a housing development in this area will be upset by this. But my friend Jen has been battling her HOA for, I think, years. I think as long as I've known you and you've been in that house, you have had trouble with the HOA. And it seems like this is something everybody can relate to. I don't know that I know one single person who is happy with their HOA. Am I wrong about that? I mean, you now talk to a lot of other people in similar situations, sharing your stories about your HOA.
Hey, Scott. Yeah, I do. I actually started a non-for-profit here in the state I live in just for those means. You grow up and you maybe get married and you buy a house, and then all of a sudden, when you're signing your 42,000 page documents, they insert a couple of pages that say, oh, by the way, you belong to an HOA. They're going to rule your life, and you're going to pay them to rule your life. And you don't really know that until you have an issue, or they call a air quote violation.
So the violations, to me, everyone I've seen bitch about it, they're ridiculous violations too. I mean, look, I live in an apartment building. I get it. I'm in a high-rise building. They'll make changes and I'll bitch about it on the air. Sometimes it's the way they collect trash that I don't like. But when you go out, and I get that. I don't own that property. I am paying a rent to live there. But when you go to buy a house, you're buying the property, you're buying the house. That's the American dream. Why are you as homeowners allowing somebody else to tell you what you can and cannot do on this piece of property that you physically own?
Exactly. Well, to counter that, they say there's an HOA board and the HOA board is on your side. Well, bull crap with that one. Most of the time, the HOA board sits very nicely in bed with the property management company. They work cahoots together. My neighbors, we've gotten now violations for leaving our trash cans out 2 extra days longer for gone for the weekend. Trash comes on Friday. It needs to be up by the next morning. It has to be inside. You can't have your trash cans outside. You have to have your lights on by a certain time. If they're burnt out, you get a violation letter.
Wait a second. They can tell you what time your lights have to be on?
Yes, they do. They can. And it's from dusk to dawn and dawn to dusk. They have to be, or whatever that saying is there. But yes, so from dark until light, your outside lights need to be on in working order, functional. So if the light bulbs aren't working, you can get a violation.
That's nuts. And yeah. So they're actually telling you when to turn the lights off too.
Correct. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Mailboxes, they have to be painted. They have to be up to code. You have to use a certain company for the mailboxes. You can't have, a couple of years ago with the weather, we had some moss and stuff growing and some green stuff growing, and they got violations for having that on their siding. They give the violations, but they never give, hey, by the way, here's a company you could use, or, hey, we got a neighbor that could help you. They never offer that second step. It's always, we're going to fine you. We're big bad Billy over here, and we're going to come down on you. And the fine could be $50. It could be $200. They could take you to court.
It seems kind of arbitrary to me, especially if you have an HOA association, a homeowner group run by people who may not like somebody in the neighborhood, that may take issue with someone or someone's personality or someone's family or someone's occupation in any given neighborhood. They can target you and come at you unfairly.
Yeah, I've never had that happen.
No, I can't imagine you would be the person that would be targeted by the homeowners groups.
Yeah, well, because I call them out. I attend the board meetings. That's the best thing. 2/3 of the American population live in HOAs. That's just the way it is. Unless you're going to buy property out in the country, more than chance you're going to get stuck in an HOA. So I always tell people, get involved with your HOA. If you can join the board, or if you can attend the meetings, or get to know the board, meet with them. Start a community involvement. Our next door neighbor across the street, she started a community group where families are now getting more of, oh, I know Sam and I know Sally, rather than relying on the board for one time a year to get everybody together.
So, in other words, organize and antagonize the HOA.
Absolutely. Yeah. The more you can have on your side, the better off you are.
So I would assume, and again, I might be wrong about this, the HOAs do have, in theory, a good purpose. Maybe it's to pool resources for cleaning up snow, or for a community pool, or community tennis courts, or a security patrol. I mean, you're pooling your resources for something that one family may not be able to do. It doesn't make sense for 50 individual households in a neighborhood to pay for a snow cleaning crew to come through, but for the entire neighborhood, that makes sense. But these fines seem kind of arbitrary and punitive, and personally directed at some people.
It is. Here's the way it works in the state I live in. So you can get a letter, you can appeal it. If you do not appeal it, then the attorney sends you a letter, because there's always an attorney that they reach out to. Then if you do not reach out to the attorney, then you will go to court. You will automatically lose in court unless you've got a really good attorney that's going to be on your side. Plus, it's very, very expensive. Then once you lose, then you have to pay the fine, and they'll automatically put a lien against your house until you pay that. And then they're going to go into a sheriff's sale. That can all happen in a matter of about 48 hours from the time that you lose the court case all the way to the sheriff's sale.
It seems like the only ones who win in this case are the attorneys.
Absolutely. That's why they have homes all across the United States and different countries.
Right. Yeah. And see, that makes sense. I think one of the stories that caught my attention first on your Facebook, Jen, when you were first complaining about the HOA, was you're an entrepreneur. You've been in business for yourself as long as I've known you, which is, let's just say, a few years. And you've always had your own businesses that you've run, including a terrific company. We see food trucks all the time. You actually have a wine truck named Vinny, and you go out and you do events, and you pour wine and you serve wine, and it's I wish there were one around here. It's a terrific business in the Indianapolis area. But you parked your wine truck in your driveway in your own home, and that's something that the HOA was able to complain about.
Correct. Yes, I did it 10 times to unload and load the products out of my house. One time it did spend the night because I arrived back like at 11 o'clock at night. We have another location where we parked the truck. It was just too late for me to do it. So ended up getting a letter. And to be quite honest, I thought it was a joke, just like most homeowners would. You're like, okay, whatever. Well, then the next thing was I was going to court, and I was like, how did this escalate so quick? But here we are. So I ended up paying close to $30,000 to attorneys for my wine truck being parked 10 different times during daylight hours and once at night in my driveway.
That's nuts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a lot. Then from there, you can go try to the appeal case, but it's just so much with attorney fees and everything. That's what I say. And I try to educate as much as possible with people. Read your CC&Rs, know your bylaws, know your what you can do and what you can't do. And if you do get a letter, reach out to that property management company and demand a meeting face-to-face with them, or a Zoom or something, to say, I don't agree with this. We need to work this out. Because if you ignore it, Big Bad is just going to come in and going to take over, and you're going to end up possibly paying thousands of dollars like I did.
And you could potentially lose your house because you parked your business truck in front of your own home, your driveway, the property that you own.
Yes.
Could potentially cost you your house.
Yep. There was another case where it was a limo company, and he had a little bit larger than a Cadillac size limo, and he was parking in front of his house, and they ended up losing their house because they went to court because they were so adamant on fighting it. Lost his business, lost his home, college education for the kids. I mean, it can just become a hot mess real quick.
I don't understand why these HOAs are so vindictive either. I understand wanting to keep the property value high for the homes in the neighborhood, but it seems like we've become too litigious as a society, and these should be things that could be worked out. If you've got a neighbor that hasn't cut the grass recently, go cut their grass for them. Maybe there's a reason why they haven't been able to get out to cut the grass. Why do we have to argue and fight with one another as neighbors over stupid crap like this? It makes no sense.
So you bring up a good point, Scott, because we just had our HOA meeting last week, and I get copies. As a homeowner, you can request copies of contracts, attorney, all that stuff. They may block some stuff out, but for the most part, you can get copies of it. We sued 6 homeowners in 2020. Now, what happened during 2020? Well, we were kind of in a pandemic, and some people lost their jobs. So we went ahead and sued them rather than calling them up and saying, hey, is there a payment plan we can work out with you? How can we make this happen? No, they went right to legal action. I was like, how disgusting is that? What type of person goes, yep, you're not human. We're just going to go ahead and sue you.
I'd love to hear other HOA horror stories. 419-214-1370. What kind of trouble have you encountered with your HOA? And Jen, you've offered some great advice for people who've gone through or might go through things like this with homeowner associations around here.
Yeah, definitely. They're never your friend. Keep them at a distance. But definitely, if you can get on the board, and if you're rolling into a neighborhood, read those CC&Rs. If you're sitting down to sign over your mortgage in your life, take the time to read it. Sometimes there's also then a fee inside of the closing just to sell your house, to have your name and title then transferred to somebody else too. There's so many fees are involved with this. It's unbelievable.
It sounds like some horrible Ponzi scheme wrapped inside of the American dream to become a homeowner. And that's why so many people, I think it's contributing to so many people looking for homes in the country where they don't have to deal with these kind of hassles of HOAs and the urban life that we're dealing with now with crime and everything else.
Oh, I agree. And the question always everybody asks is, why do you still stay there? Well, the funny part is we're actually building. We are moving to the country, so we are getting out of here. And I never, ever will live in another HOA subdivision ever again in my life.
Get the hell out of there.
Right.
HOA horror stories. I want to hear them. 419-214-1370. Jen, so great to see you, and congratulations, all the success of Vinny and all your other businesses.
Thank you so much.